Hey guys, I'm just going to talk about some time series data real quick. So, time series data, what is it? It's just us measuring two things at once basically. We're measuring time and the progression of time, and we're measuring something else. And we're kind of checking to see whether the second thing that we're measuring, our second variable, does it depend on time? Or, in other words, does it depend on our independent variable, which is time? And so, because of that, if we were to ever graph some time series data, we'd graph our time along the x-axis and our second dependent variable along the y-axis. So here's just an example question I've done. You can see it's talking about the approximate population of an outback town recorded from 1990 to 2005. And each column here shows a data point on our graph. So in the year 1990, the population was 1300. Year 1991, population was 1250. You can see here this dot point corresponds to the year 1990 and the population 1300. Here we have year 1991, population is 1250. So each one of these dots just corresponds to each column in this table, right? We've just taken all these columns and we've plotted them straight onto our graph, and then I've just connected up the dots with straight lines. And all those, all this graph, this time series graph does, it just kind of maps out the trend of our data. It's like, how does dependent variable, how does our population change as time progresses? And we can kind of see really clearly that we start off at a maximum of 1300, and as the years progress, we sort of start to dip. And as we get to the end, the early 2000s, there's a little bit of fluctuation right at the end there, if we were to just describe this data really quickly. Great, so that's all well and good. If we wanted to plot some time series data and describe it, we would just chuck it on some axes and then we talk about the trend. Okay, is there an easier way to draw this time series data? Absolutely. We'd get out our class pad and we go to statistics. From there, we would just put all of our data, this whole table that we've got in our example, I've just transposed that into, or I've just taken that and I've pasted it into the statistics settings in my class pad. I've taken the year column, the year row, and I've put it into my list one. And I've taken the population and I've put it into my list two. All I'm going to do now is go set graph, make sure stat graph 1 is ticked, go setting, and select XY line. X list, that was my list 1, my years. Y list, that's my list 2, my populations. Frequency of 1, yep. There's only one of each every time I type it in each in list 1 and list 2. And I'd like my markings to be squares on my graph. So set, come up here and press this button to graph it. And there you go, we see the exact same image drawn for us on our class pad, and also we get this line of regression. We get a line of best fit that kind of gives us a linear model for the trend. We can clearly see here that there's a downward sloping line, and so we can see that the linear trend or the linear regression here is a decrease as we go on with time. In other words, the population is going to be decreasing in general as we progress in time. Okay, so two ways we could come up with these time series graphs and how we might describe them. Bye bye.